digital education. So thanks so much for being here. His talk will be about progress creating an open source IT stack for schools in the Netherlands. And we're really curious to hear what you're going to tell us. Thanks so much, Geert-Jan.
Well, thank you, Paulo. I'd like to talk to you about the progress with a project we're doing in the Netherlands that's called Fair Digital Education. But let me start with a few questions. Who has kids that go to school in the... and who of them is going to a Google school, where you have to use the Google Workspace stuff with a Chromebook and stuff like that? Oh, that's... no, that's not too many. I've been in locations where there were many more. And who's the same question, but then from Microsoft? Who's at the Microsoft school? Oh, that's not many. That's amazing. That's not so many people. Great. And who of the people that have to work with those big tech companies is angry at the school for doing that? Yeah, well, I'd rather see the schools as a part of the victims and not as the complicit guys, although you might think different on that. First of all, my name is Geert-Jan Meewisse. I work as a network designer, and I'm also a privacy activist. And for that reason, I de-Googled my entire life, like over a decade ago, and that of my family, until the school decided otherwise for my children. At first, I became very angry at the school for creating Google accounts and giving all the data of my children away to Google. And then I became very angry at the school for doing that. But that's not very effective if there's not a good alternative for a school, because a school is not going to download and install a dozen of open source packages and integrate that. So a party should help schools doing that and supporting them in that. Well, in the Netherlands, I am from the Netherlands, so basically the talk is over, problem solved, because in the Netherlands we have tamed big tech. Meaning they've done a DPIA and changed a few little details in the product. That's all the consequence of the GDPR legislation. So you do a detailed privacy impact assessment, and then all your problems are solved. So schools now have done a DPIA, and they have a data processing agreement with these big tech companies. But what's often forgotten is that these legal contracts come with a bookwork of technical manual that you should be implementing. And that basically comes down to anything that's very handy and practical, you should switch it off because it's not GDPR compliant. So not a single school is going to do that because, well, it's not very convenient. Another thing is, especially within Google, the data processing agreement is only applicable to the core services, but the services you're offered in the school are a complete mixture of things that are not part of the core services. So we have, like, for instance, search, YouTube, and Google Maps. Those are additional services that just happen to be on the internet. Well, if you give me the search history of a kid and the YouTube history, you quite well know what a kid is doing. That about the GDPR, but there's many more public values at stake in schools. Because the GDPR only looks at privacy, and then from a very narrow lawyer perspective. But there's a lot more at stake. First, if you have the vendor lock-in, you have the privatization of collective effort, and you have all these big tech companies that want to have all the power instead of our liberal democracies. This slide is, in a few minutes, is way too much information. I could have a 2-hour discussion about that. I did include a lot of backup slides in the file I uploaded, so you can download it probably afterwards. So, short summary, we have kids, we send them to school, and there we teach them how to use big tech services, and then outside of the school, it's impossible to have the exact same privacy conditions as you have in school. So we're teaching children how to use services that are not attainable outside of school. It's like teaching children how to work with asbestos, and in school you give them gloves, you put on a safety mask, and outside of school they're going to work with that, but then there's no mask, there's no gloves, no nothing. So the legal fantasy that's happening here is that a kid goes home, then reads all the terms and conditions of their Microsoft Office 365 or their Google Work packages, and then goes like, that's not such a good idea. Let's look for an alternative. Well, that's of course not going to happen. So what do we get if we continue in this way? We're eroding our free society. We're giving the big tech bros all the power to manipulate the entire society. So we end up in a totally, completely enshittified world. And we cannot let that happen. If the picture is done, now to the next slide. Something about the school system. In the Netherlands, you have schools that can decide by themselves. They're not part of government, like in many other European countries. It looks a bit similar like in Italy, where also schools make their own decisions on what to do. So that is a great opportunity for us, because we only need to convince a few schools, and there we can do a pilot and demonstrate that you can do better. And then we can go invite other schools and policymakers into that schools that are running free open source software. And so a school director can hear from another school director that is just all working fine and nicely. So we approach the problem from 3 angles. We do these pilots on schools. We lobby advocate at the policy level with politicians, and we do journalistic research in what the current situation is and how, even though all the privacy impact analysis are done, they're not compliant at all. That's not the reality. We did a desk study in how you should be building an open source environment. And it's remarkably similar to what's happening here in Italy and what's happening in Finland and what's happening in Germany. You basically have a Linux distribution on your laptop, you use Nextcloud, you use an email solution, you use a pupil administration system like Gibbon or Alexis, that's a new one. And in the Netherlands, there's also another project starting that's more adapted to the Dutch context. And very important, you need a single sign-on environment where you hook up everything to. So you get a single dashboard where you can access all of your applications. Our current status, we have one primary school where we really build everything. And we had another pilot school that was a greenfield situation, but they got a new director, so they gave everything away to Microsoft again. That was a huge waste of efforts, but we did learn some lessons. And we have a combined school that has asked us to do something else with the Chromebooks. I have one with me. If you want to have experience a liberated Chromebook, come to me afterwards. And we are looking for other European alternatives because we should collaborate more together. I'm going to skip. There's a huge advantage in reusing Chromebooks because you can keep using them for way longer than they're officially supported. So you don't have the landfill, and you liberate them out of the Google ecosystem, which is not an ecosystem at all. And so you can keep using devices. Well, these are the liberated Chromebooks. Yeah, what do you need? I'm going to skip, I think this is quite clear. Let's go to the next steps. We're building a demo, so we can go to educational fairs and conferences to show that it actually works, do more pilots, and as soon as the pilot works, roll out on the rest of the Netherlands. So, let's fix the internet, start at school. Are there any questions? Because I have some minutes left.
Who's first?
Thank you for your talk and the effort. I totally understand what you're saying and the critical points behind it, because I also am IT administrator at a small school. And this is really challenging, and one of our challenges is to keep the system online when people within the in the school change. So the parents more or less drive this IT system, and this is one of our challenges. So how?
Yeah, that's especially one of the main reasons our first pilot school quit, because this director did not feel like explaining to every new teacher that's coming in every time that, oh, here the computers work different. No, this is not what you used to. Yes, it's important. Why? Yada, yada, yada. And then the next interim teacher comes along and he can restart the story over and over and over and over again. So that's why this director said, I'm going to quit with this. We're going back to Microsoft, because everybody knows that. That's something we need to, as a front runner, you will run into this, but as soon as you have plenty schools running open source, then the open source part becomes normal, and the question will be the other way around. Like, the teachers start asking, why on a Microsoft or a Google school, why are you not doing normal open source?
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you know is there a community in Austria around these systems?
Sorry, I didn't catch the question.
Do you know, is there a community around Austria, around these open source systems?
We know some people in Austria.
In Austria, yeah. Is there a community? Do you know someone? That would be the next question from my side, because I'm from Austria, not from Italy. You're from Netherlands?
Let's discuss afterwards if we know the same people, because and please join our Matrix group. There we have a community, and we really try to get all of these European projects together to have more knowledge exchange.
Thank you.
Maybe you meant an Internet Society chapter, as the one in the Netherlands?
Well, first of all, thank you for the talk. I'm just wondering, because I'm very angry at my school. You began your talk saying, oh, well, you shouldn't be angry at your school because it's choosing Microsoft over some free software alternative or something like that. But actually, I'm studying at the University of Trento. And in the University of Trento, there's full of resources. Technical resources, meaning like people that know how to put up, I don't know, a mail server without giving it to Google, and even infrastructure resources, meaning we have the computational power to handle a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And this makes me really angry, and I'm asking you, if you have some insights, not on the University of Trento, obviously, but on, maybe I didn't take it from your talk, on why, except for maybe you know Microsoft, so I'm choosing Microsoft, but why should it go this way? In my point of view, would be cheaper, I don't know, to self-host in the university, I don't know, some kind of alternative. And yeah, maybe if you have some insights on that.
Yeah, well, first of all, if I say don't be angry at the school, I mean the local primary and secondary schools, because they don't have any resources. If you're looking at a big university, they should be very, very ashamed of themselves of not taking academic freedom and freedom of speech seriously. And the second... I know I lost it.
Just asking if you have some insights on why it is more convenient to give to Google or Microsoft some services that you can self-host.
If you hire a few people that are good at administrating and managing a few good sysadmins, and something happens with the system, then you are responsible as a director. And if you outsource everything to Microsoft, it's never your problem if something goes wrong at Microsoft. It's outsourcing of responsibility. And my point is that we as an open source community should make sure that there's providers that also take on this responsibility so that you can outsource the responsibility as an institution and have an open source community company that's ethical and doing the right things instead of the data theft that's going on now.
Thanks so much, Geert-Jan. I think we don't have more time for questions. Maybe one quick one, sure.
Mine was just a suggestion. Maybe you guys are just already doing it, but when I was in school, I started first using Linux, and I saw Linux for the first time in school, and since at home, obviously, everything was running on Windows, I thought, well, this is kind of weird, and I think as a suggestion, it would be nice to actually explain to students why are they using something maybe different than maybe they see it for the first time, and maybe then they are going to choose it at home as well, and maybe bring that input to parents and just put it forward.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's a very good suggestion. There is a practical school in the Netherlands that's exactly doing this. They're doing as a first lesson, here's your laptop, here's your machine for your school career, here's a USB stick, go and install. And then that laptop and with that OS, they're using Manjaro Linux, is what you need to keep using for the rest of that that schooling. Oh, microphone.
No, what I just wanted to say, I guess, is just explain to them why is it important that they use something different than Microsoft. Because I guess I didn't have that, and I didn't really realize, why are we using Linux? Why?
Oh, so you mean explain the values behind it?
Yeah, no, the actual students that are going to use it.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of nice, because I thought it was just weird. We're using some different system. Why are we doing that? We're used to something else, and everybody's just using Microsoft. Why aren't we using Windows?
Yeah, but it's also that we're more focused on infrastructure and not on the teaching itself. But as well. Yeah, it would be good if teachers would be doing that. Yeah, indeed.
Okay.
Oh, and there's one more very interesting thing in the Netherlands that's called neon.nl. That's a new non-profit organization that's going to write educational materials for the entire curriculum of the secondary schools. And that's because it's a cooperation funded by the schools themselves. They try to liberate themselves out of the educational publisher, out of the clause of the educational publishers. So check that out. It's very new. I only heard it's not in the slides because the slides were uploaded before I heard about them. So, but it's an interesting initiative.
Okay, thanks again, Geert-Jan.